This week on Buffering, we are back from ConneXions and ready to recap everything from the past week. It's great to see you. We both have our voices back.
Yeah, I feel like I feel a bit more well-rested, Zach, versus where we were at when we were on site. Yeah, I lost my voice a bit too, but it's awesome to be back. It's always such an exciting week to see everybody and to see, I mean, shoot, man, thousands of people together in one place, and excited about the future of telecom. And we were just able to have so many wonderful conversations while we were there too.
Absolutely. And as tough as it may be trying to talk over the Calyx band, the accelerators, Gabe, it's just a great event overall. Fantastic, as you mentioned, meeting the thousands of people at the event, the fantastic staff who worked the event as well. Just a great week in Las Vegas, if that sentence has ever been said.
Well, there were some people who, I know some of the Calyx folks went right from Wispalooza, and a lot of Calyx customers actually too, directly into ConneXions, which is, man, they're there for like 8 or 9 days. That is a long time in Vegas. I did not envy that crew.
No, I'm very happy with just a few days. And I will say, though, it was 80s. It was beautiful in Vegas, weather-wise. But as soon as I got off the plane in Denver and stepped out of the terminal, it was cold. You're greeted by that nice mountain wind. So that was nice as well.
I'm sure it felt good to be, back in your sort of normal situation. The mornings were beautiful. I was walking over from another hotel to the Wynn, and then the mornings were like 50. It was great. It just felt good to get some. That was my only fresh air the entire time. It's hard to get outside and actually enjoy any sunshine because we're just so darn busy.
I was cracking up because on my phone, I think I clocked in between 25 and 30 miles. And I thought about that. I thought, I don't know if I actually went outside, much of those days. But overall, Gabe, fantastic event. It was great seeing you in person. And again, seeing you in person, we had the opportunity to do a few podcast episodes with some folks here, with some customers as well, which was a great opportunity as well.
Yeah, it was awesome. And Zach, I know we really went in there with a plan of, trying to get people on the pod who are on stage in other areas and get them an opportunity to continue to, tell the stories that they were telling on stage, get into a little bit more detail, go through all of that. And I think we did hopefully a good job of capturing some of that enthusiasm from people that were either on the main stage or, in breakout sessions and those sorts of things. And I was really pleased with the amount of folks that we were able to get on, with the number of episodes that we were able to get done. Technology betrayed us a little bit, Zach, but certainly better than I think we did the previous year, where we had very little time to prepare. I think we were a bit more ready for it this year than we were last year, for sure.
Oh yeah, and we saw some familiar faces on both the podcast and main stage, and all of those episodes have been published. So if you haven't yet listened to those episodes following ConneXions, just scroll down a few episodes and you'll see those as well. But yeah. Gabe, again,
and I will say, Zach, you did a good job of. I think we did a good job of capturing those in kind of bite-sized chunks. A lot of those were, frankly, shorter episodes than what we normally do.
Yeah, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Most of them were in that kind of 10 to 15 minute range, where we got in, we hit a topic, had some great conversations with people. Everybody's so busy at that event, so we were able to get in and have those quick conversations. I can't go by, Zach, though, without saying one thing about the podcast that was very, very cool, is that our good friend Gina Schuler from Home Telecom shouted us out from the main stage and was very, very kind. And her enthusiasm about the podcast and just her willingness to share how much it's been helpful for her. So I do have to continue to just say thank you to Gina for that. That was awesome. And it was, I like blushed, man. Like I was genuinely touched. It was very kind.
There was cheers in the audience, Gabe, and I through my sessions I made sure to promote it as well. Humbly saying it was my favorite podcast, but no, that was fantastic as well. And then to see Lori up on main stage as well, sharing her story. We sat down with Lori a few months ago. Again, just a great opportunity to continue those conversations, either from the podcast onto main stage or from main stage onto the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, cross promotional, man. It's almost like we know what the heck we're doing.
We what's it? Fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Gabe, so much happened at ConneXions, and today I want to kind of recap everything. some of the key takeaways and the implications for broadband leaders and marketers as well. But I think we have to start by talking about what I'm going to say is probably the most significant announcement here at ConneXions, specifically with the next generation Calix broadband platform, is the AI, agentic AI capabilities, AI powering these autonomous, intelligent operations. I think that was probably one of the big takeaways of this past week.
Without a doubt. I don't think anybody who attended is going to be surprised by you saying that's the biggest takeaway. It was certainly discussed in numerous places, not only on the main stage, but in numerous breakout sessions as well. I thought, not to kiss up to our bosses, but I did really think Michael did a fantastic job on Monday in the main stage session, articulating the transition that we've been through as an organization, the transition that's going to be happening in our industry as agentic AI really becomes more of a thing,
Hmm.
and more of a solution for people to adopt in our industry. And I thought he did such a fantastic job just laying out those, we call it the layer cake, right? I think that he had that slide that he went through in quite a bit of detail, but really laying out the foundational things that we as an organization are doing to make this accessible for a broader set of people. So I was very, very excited to see all of that. I know there was a bunch of great conversations in the showcase as well around AI. But yeah, man, I don't think anybody could have walked away from that event thinking that AI is not the future of where we're going as an
Well,
industry.
and just to expand on that too, we talked a lot about this human to AI collaboration, right? So,
Hmm.
and one of the big things here is AI has been a big buzzword over the last few years. Gabe, I made the joke over the weekend of like the top trending apps, and like there was like the one like food app that wasn't an AI startup, but it was one of the top apps on the App Store because it's been so you know I don't know if I want to say influenced. It's been so saturated with all these different AI platforms, all these different AI apps. There's the AI slop kind of thing going on now, but I think the
I
vision
blame you
we
and your generation with your Sora videos and your AI slop, but yeah.
I need to give Sora a break here, but with connections last week, the next gen platform and everything, we talked about how we're not just simply adopting AI models. We're not just simply throwing around this AI word. We're building on those 14 years of operational knowledge, and then the expertise with BSPs to not only build this next generation platform, but to have the insights, the actions that are relevant, and then optimize for each BSP as well. So
Mm,
simplifying operations, accelerated innovation, and creating greater business value
yeah,
at
yeah.
scale is one of the, I guess, key takeaways from that first day.
For sure. And I think one of the other big takeaways too is something that's been, I think, a bit of a concern for folks is, what happens with jobs as AI starts to do more of this. And I think we've been very, Zach, I think we've been pretty clear. And I think overall, Calix has been pretty clear as well that, we don't see AI as something that is going to take people's jobs. It's going to be something that maybe replaces some of the activities that they do on a day-to-day basis. But we work in an industry that it's frankly difficult for folks to hire as many people as they would like. Oftentimes they're in rural parts of the country. They may not necessarily be able to find the types of folks that they want to hire. So, we are big proponents of leveraging AI to be more efficient, but also making sure that you're not, eliminating jobs. You're just maybe shifting those jobs a bit where people are doing different things rather than situations where they had to be reactive before and they were waiting for calls to come in. Now, all of a sudden you can flip that. And by being able to be more proactive, be able to provide better data to your folks who were answering calls before, now maybe all of a sudden they're able to reach out to folks in a proactive way to help them have a better experience.
And we'll talk more about that proactive initiative here in a few minutes, but um, just coming off the AI thing. So one of the big things was the Calix agent workforce, and Gabe, we previously did an episode about going beyond the prompt. Right? What's next? How can we leverage artificial intelligence beyond going into a model and prompting it for an outcome? And that was one of the big takeaways as well. Is these AI agents that can be securely activated and to work with complex data intensive tasks across your business, marketing, customer service, operations as well. And I mean, to your point right there, Gabe, is allowing you to shift to more of a high value activity and scale your workforce at the same time.
Yeah, that's it. It's that scaling of the workforce and being able to shift them to more high value activities. Zach, I think about this in our own lives, how as we've been able to leverage AI in the day to day activities that we do, I really feel like we've been able to up-level ourselves into more strategic conversations by removing the just research or the data analysis or the data analysis paralysis. Some of the things that would have taken us a tremendous amount of time previously, we've been able to automate a lot of that, and it's allowed us to have very different types of conversations with our customers.
Absolutely, you'd be silly not to adopt AI to help yourself in those situations. And Gabe, as marketers, one of the use cases we kind of think about as well was, in the broadband space, upselling subscribers or promoting different service tiers as well. And I think when we talk about those data intensive tasks, we can look at things like, okay, well, how do I promote my 1 gigabit per second service tier? And in the past, or present for some, it's all about promoting that 1 gig speed to everyone. But again, with AI, we can now take that data, segment based on behavioral data, and curate recommended managed services, even that align with lifestyle needs. And we can do this at scale. So, hyper personalization at scale. And, ultimately what this leads to here is yeah, increased acquisition, Gabe, higher ARPU, increased take rates as well. That from the marketing stance. Now, from your service and support broadband operations, that's where I think more of that proactive piece can come into play as well. Predictive modeling and flagging at-risk subscribers based on specific indicators, and then also improving things like faster time to resolution, reduced trouble tickets as well. So, I'm very excited to see here what where this platform goes next.
For sure. And I know we talked a fair amount about Engagement Cloud at ConneXions and some of the things that are coming there, but that's the part where I get really excited when we get into these marketing conversations, Zach, is thinking about, you said it perfectly, how to personalize at scale and how, the Engagement Cloud platform, Marketing Cloud, as we used to call it, is so rich with data that, but it does sometimes become difficult for people to action that data because there's so much information. That's a perfect job for AI,
Mhm.
and be able to analyze that data in a much more effective way and then create those really hyper targeted, hyper personalized campaigns based off of that data and insight. Again, that's just something that AI is just like perfectly built for, to be able to go through all of this rich data that broadband providers have about their subscribers, about their prospects, and then again create those really hyper personalized campaigns. So I'm so enthusiastic about where this stuff's going. I wanted to talk a little bit, Zach, about kind of how I see this shifting, or some of the previous examples that we've been through just in previous technological changes. But anything else to top up there before I jump into that bit?
No, let's go ahead and jump right into that, Gabe.
Okay, cool. So Zach and we talked about this a number of times before, and we were chatting about it a little bit ago, but it's really thinking about what technological revolutions have happened in the past and how can AI compare to those things. And what I used a few weeks ago in a presentation that I was giving, and I fully stole from somebody else inside of Calix, as I thought it went over really well. But it's this whole idea of migrating from steam power to electric power and what that meant from a system change perspective. And just to hit that really quick, when factories moved to electric power, initially there wasn't significant gains because they just brought electrical power into the same place where steam power was powering the factory before. So the factory layout, where the actual where the equipment was still relatively the same as what existed with steam power. Well, then over years, and in fact over decades, this took like 40 years for it to really, shift. What ended up happening was, as people realized, well, as we build new factories or as we upgrade factories, we can put electricity all over the place. So all of a sudden, the equipment can be arranged in a way that's actually much more efficient versus what we had previously. And that, to me, I think is a really good correlation with where we're at from an AI perspective. Now, our systems need to change. Our processes need to change. We're in this, and I've talked about this before from a book that I read. But it's these in between times where we have this technology, but we haven't really fully adopted it to shift the way that we do business on a day-to-day basis. And that's where we're really going to start to see the unlock from an AI perspective. And to go back to your comments about agentic AI and all of that, that's really, to me, where we start to see a powerful shift in how businesses can take advantage of AI in their day-to-day activities.
Absolutely. And Gabe, speaking of business transformation, this would not be a podcast episode if we didn't talk about Crumble. And for those at ConneXions, I really hope this clicked on the main stage as well. Gabe, we've done a buffer and ping episode on this exact topic, so I'm not going to dive too deep into the details there. I'm going to encourage everyone to go back and watch that episode, but we have to talk about Crumble, right? We
How
have to
happy
talk
were you
about.
when John started talking about that on main
I
stage? You
have
had to
been
just be
like
delighted.
I've been like keeping that a secret for I don't know a couple months now, just waiting for everyone to see that because it's such a good example too. And Crumble, so the cookie company, right? So I think we have to talk about how young this company is and how they started, right? This company, they've only been around since 2017. That's when they've opened their first store in Logan, Utah. And they started with how many products, Gabe? Do you remember how many products they started with?
One product.
One.
One
That's
product.
not a
Chocolate
that
chip
is
cookie,
not a
right?
yeah, and that is not a differentiated market, right? You can go to, I mean, any grocery store, or really any, I mean, there's other cookie shops as well, but you can go anywhere and find a chocolate chip cookie. So to start this business around a single product, it it kind of we use the example of having the three ingredients, right? There was the product innovation, customer engagement, and then the organizational resiliency as well. So from a product innovation standpoint, um, the way to look at this is consumer preferences change. There's going to be new markets, new opportunities, new products, and that's where Crumble, started introducing new cookies. They rotate that menu every week, which kind of leads into the customer engagement. They live in the spaces that their customers are, right? They're connecting with their customers. You have that rotating menu. You have all those social media accounts as well. There's the hype up to Sunday nights, 6 p.m. Mountain Time when that new menu drops for the week, which, of course, going back to that ping episode, kind of builds that urgency around it
Mm-hmm.
as well. And then finally, just the organizational resiliency I mentioned there. If you're going to transform, you need to take your company with you. So this is a company that went from one location in 2017 and now has just over, I think, 1,100 locations in 2025, 1.2 billion in revenue, and now they have 300 plus product variations again on that rotating menu. And speaking of that rotating menu, this week, one of my favorite crumble cookies. Actually, it is my number one favorite right now, is on the menu. So you better believe I will be visiting my local crumble this week. But it's the this sounds silly, but the chocolate chip cookie dough cookie. Like it's not cookie dough, it's a cookie dough cookie. That is like my favorite right now. Highly recommend it. Um, Disclaimer, I am not a crumble investor. I've said that before. I said that on the podcast, Gabe, um, with the folks on site at ConneXions as
I was
well.
going to
But
say we have to say that that Lindsay and Maggie from Next Tech were very kind and brought us a crumble cookie for the
the
episode that we did.
first,
So if you want to suck up to
yeah,
us as hosts, that's a great way to do it.
yeah, it was our first guest to bring us not only a snack but a sweet treat from Crumble. But
Mm-hmm.
that's really all I had to say about Crumble today. If you want to learn more, you can always go to the Alex ConneXions content, watch that video, or you can go back and
Yeah.
watch that ping episode. Again, 10 minutes. We talked all about what Crumble is doing from a business standpoint.
I loved what John talked about around the recipe for success. I thought that was such a brilliant way to bring that in as well. And something you mentioned there, Zach, just to top up, that organizational resiliency. They have built their company around change. The menu changes every week. Like you said, they have tons of different, product variations now.
They
They've
just
started to,
added soda to their
I was
menu
just going to
this
say,
year.
they've started to branch out into other products, pie, soda. I think, was that through a partnership with Swig, or was that its
No, that
own
was
thing? That was
two
its own thing.
entirely
Okay.
separate companies. But I
Okay.
mean, that's my company example for another time. But I mean, yeah, these products and even their app and the way they do business is constantly changing. I feel like they do a lot of testing. Like
Oh,
most
I'm sure
recently,
they
they
test
even
the
tested the
crap out of this
secret
stuff.
menu, right? They added
Mm-hmm.
the secret menu where people can go on and vote. But again, I think the organizational resiliency, not to top up on that too much here, is a key component. So this is a business that, while new, is constantly testing things, constantly changing, constantly adapting to their market.
Yep. Yeah. And I feel like we've hammered this point so much, but it's such an important one, which is they built their culture and structure around change. And so therefore they're able to adapt and change very rapidly. I would say not to offend, but in our industry, there's a lot of inertia built up around not changing.
Mhm.
And, we heard one of the really cool things I think about our industry is that we do have companies that have been around for a very long time, decades, or maybe even 100 years. That's awesome. I love the longevity that we see with providers in our space, especially those rural providers, serving specific parts of the country. But unfortunately, that sometimes means that there's a lot of inertia built up around not changing. Now, we do see some, I think, of CLTel, Clear Lake Telephone, who was on the main stage at ConneXions as well. They're a 100-plus-year-old company, and they were talking about all of the things that they've done to change. So, this just because your company has been around for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you can't push and change. You can't, you can be, you can have that organizational resiliency, like somebody that we see with Crumble.
And that's enough Crumble talk for the day.
I know, I'm hungry. I want that cookie again that Maggie and Lindsay brought to us, but alas.
Was it the banana bread one?
It was, yeah, it was really good.
Man, there's also the chocolate. Well, it's Halloween week, so they've got a pretty unique menu. I do have to laugh though, because John mentioned, like, has anyone heard of the everything bagel cookie? And when he said that on main stage, I was like, no, John, don't start this presentation talking about that. But the way he talked about, like, oh, like, people hated it, and like the hype it built, and how famous his cookie became just made me crack up. But when I saw the rotating menu this week, it had like the Halloween theme and had like everything bagel cookie rising. I was like, oh no, please not this week. But I was cracking up with that whole story. But let's talk a little bit about market insights here. And a few weeks ago, we talked with Megan Powell here on the podcast here on market insights and the need for this timely strategic intelligence in the crowded markets that the broadband service providers we work with operate in. And ultimately, what was created here is Market Insights, this first of its kind hub with interactive insights that BSPs can use to make faster and smarter decisions, really amplifying that BSP to BXP, that broadband experience provider transformation. And Gabe, as we always tell people, making sure that the strategy is guided by actual data.
Yeah, I love the fact that we're making investments here and getting information out in front of our customers. That episode we had Megan and then Candy on from MEC, and we talking about kind of the future of broadband and where things are going. And I love, again, that we're just making these investments. One of the other things that we did I shouldn't say we did, that the Market Insights team did, I don't want to take any credit for this because it was great work by them. They actually completed a research study recently where they went out in partnership, and John spoke about this a little bit on the stage, but they went out in partnership with a company where we just basically outsourced all of this to an external company because we didn't want it to be perceived as a Calix survey, which could, potentially, we didn't want to see it like we were pushing it in any specific direction. So they went out and surveyed 2,000 people, just random people across the United States. It was a mix of age groups. It was a mix of income groups. It was a mix of, rural, urban, suburban, just a wide variety of people, and got 2,000 responses back to a whole bunch of questions. And we've gotten access to the study. I've been able to look through some of it. And one of the big takeaways that I had from that, Zach, is, and this is something that we talk about frequently, but people do not understand the technology that is being used to serve their home. That is something that just jumped out to me straight away. They don't understand fiber. They don't understand, necessarily why it's better. That's just something that in general is not something that is going to resonate with a broad group of people.
We've talked about that hypothesis for so long, and now seeing the data that backs that up and confirms it. I don't want to say I love to see that per se, but it's great to have that validation and have that data in our pockets now.
Well, it just goes to show us why we need to start talking about this stuff in a different way. I had a meeting with the general manager while I was at ConneXions, and we were talking about this specific topic. And he's relatively new into this broadband service provider. He's coming in. He's trying to, think about things in a slightly different way. And I went to his website before we met, and there's a whole bunch of talk about fiber, about what it is, about, strands of glass, and, all of the technological terms that Zach, you and I kind of joke about from time to time. And I'm like, look, man, you got to do something, and update this. And he was fully on board. He realizes they need to do something different. So he was very, very aligned to that. But it is something that we see very, very frequently where, so many people are just continuing to fall back on the technology. And based on the survey that we saw and the results of that study, it's not going to be a winning strategy moving forward for sure.
Gabe, do you know what ingredients are in a chocolate chip cookie dough cookie at Crumble? I want to know the specific
flour,
ingredients.
obviously some
I mean,
chocolate chips,
flour, sugar, but nobody asks those questions. I mean,
no,
well, for the most part,
cares.
unless you need to, but like nobody cares about the ingredients. We talked about this on a previous episode as well, but it's not about the ingredients, it's about the finished product. It's about the experience that it delivers. And I think that goes right into what we're talking about there.
Yeah, in that meeting, I gave you full credit for your cake analogy, which is a perfect one. And he actually brought up one that I thought was really interesting that I had never heard anybody use before. But it was, you wouldn't go into a bar and be like, hey, can I have a little bit of tequila and a little bit of lime juice and some triple sec and, a little bit of salt on the glass. No, you just go in and order a margarita, right? Like you're going in and ordering a specific thing, which felt more appropriate for a Vegas conversation versus a cake. But yeah, I thought that was a perfect example of, why are we talking about the ingredients when people just want a specific outcome?
Gabe, I'll be honest, I don't even know like the base cookie of my favorite crumble cookie. I don't even know what that is. Like I legitimately do not know what if it's a chocolate chip cookie, sugar cookie. I don't know what that is. Like
Nor
I
do you
said,
care.
at the end of the day, it's my favorite cookie.
Yeah. So stay tuned for more of that information. I know we're going to be sharing some of that information more broadly. We also have the ability to even partner with providers who want to do some of that research on their own, be able to provide them some of those same questions that we asked. So there's a lot more to come on this, but I'm just thrilled to see the investment that ConneXions is making from a market insights perspective. And the hard work that team is doing, to really get this information out in front of providers.
Yeah. And Gabe, I just want to kind of wrap up the podcast here by talking about one of the other major takeaways here from ConneXions. And there were so many that Gabe and I couldn't fit everything on a single episode here. But Operation iFast, this is one we did an episode on a while back with Chris from CLTel and then the Guardian Group as well. But can you talk to us a little bit about what Operation iFast is and what the outcome from ConneXions was?
Yeah, I mentioned Chris from CLTel earlier, and yeah, it was Chris and Andrea, Chris from CLTel, Andrea from the Guardian Group were on main stage as well, talking about the work that they have done and Operation iFast, which is focused on helping save kids from sex trafficking, which is a very heavy topic to say the least. But the work that the Guardian Group has done in partnership with Operation iFast has been amazing. I forget the exact number, Zach, but I want to say it was a few hundred children that they've been able to save just this year. And they're doing this in partnership with the NTCA and training support, INR techs, those types of folks who are in people's homes to identify the potential risks, identify these potential issues, and then get in contact with law enforcement. So the thing that I was really encouraged by at the event, not only just the fact that we were able to tell that story and hopefully shine a brighter light on it, but ConneXions offered to match up to 200 or donations for up to 200 broadband service providers for them to join that group, which, that's amazing. And Andrea talked about it, hey, we've been able to save a few hundred kids so far this year. Maybe we'll come back next year and talk about how we've been able to save thousands. And yeah, it's a tough conversation. It's not something that's easy to discuss, but I have to give them a tremendous amount of credit for the work that they're doing and just the amazing platform that they've been able to create.
Absolutely. So it was very exciting to see both Chris and Andrea there at ConneXions as well, promoting this fantastic program. So, Gabe, going back to this past week here at ConneXions, I want to talk about some of the key takeaways. And we'll start with the broadband leaders, right? They have this need to prioritize secure deployment and integration of agentic AI, but also new technologies, evolving technologies as well as part of their competitive strategy.
Yep. Yeah. And so much of this is built to me around trust. And it's going to be a period of time for us to build trust with agents in partnership with humans. And that's why the human and agentic part of this and partnership working together is so important to build that trust. However, there also has to be trust in the data. And that is the big thing that I would say that came up frequently in conversations that I was involved in, or just conversations that I heard from the stage, is we need to build a level of trust in the data that we have. And that's the work that we really need to focus on now as we look to build into this agentic AI future, is making sure that our data is clean, making sure that there's this strong foundation of data that sits below the surface, so that as we want to take advantage of these new this new technology, this new future that we're building, that we have that strong foundation to be able to do so.
Gabe, I love talking about data, especially when it's clean data that we can action.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want the takeaway for people to be like, well, my data has to be perfect in order for us to,
because that doesn't exist.
Exactly. There's no such thing as perfect data. So, yes, there are probably things that you need to do. Maybe there's some remediation that you need to make in order to actually have a strong, a strong baseline there. But perfect is not achievable. So don't expect that you're going to get to perfect before you can start to take advantage of some of this technology. It's just not something that's realistic.
Yeah. And so for the marketers on the call, I think we talked about this a little bit, Gabe, but there's just that need to shift away from the traditional segmentation and move into that hyper-personalized segmentation I mentioned. You now have the help of these AI agents that can help you market across different channels and different environments as well. And I hate to drop this at the very end of the podcast as well, but I mean, let's be honest here, Gabe. I think this also means that you need to redefine your customer journey. You need to seamlessly build in some of these digital triggers that may be coming and these different automated delivery channels as well. And really think about what touch points do I have with my subscribers? What touch points do I have with my prospects? And like I said, redefine that journey. What's worked 10 years ago, even what's worked 5 years ago, what worked last year is not going to work in the future as well, or may not work as well in the future.
For sure. And again, there's a spectrum here. I don't want people to walk away thinking, oh my gosh, I have to personalize, I have to go to a segment of one, that eventually we may get there. And I would love to see us get there with super targeted, super hyper personalized campaigns. But if our industry broadly does a lot of generic marketing now, and eventually we'd like to get over here on the other end of the spectrum to be these hyper-personalized, hyper-targeted campaigns where we have very small numbers of segments that we can target. There's a continuum here, and we need to work towards that continuum. And I just hit my microphone as I was going through and doing that, so that'll be fun to listen back to on the pod. But as we go through that continuum here, we need to think about what are these incremental steps that we can get to just get a little bit better each day, where we're continuing to, build those segments, target those specific groups, and then start to build that recipe of success, to go back to the crumble example.
I love that we ended on the crumbled example, Gabe. But as always, Gabe, it was great to see you this past week. I still think we need like a podcast studio in person that we can go to once a month. So I hate to say that Vegas is halfway between us, but we'll have to find somewhere close where we can reconnect and have these conversations. But
I'd be more cool with maybe a Salt Lake or Denver. And Denver's a lot closer for you, and it's not, it's a relatively short plane.
I mean, I'm happy with either of those locations, but if it needs to be somewhere tropical, we can put that in the budget for next year.
There we go. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Buffering. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn.